And we're back with Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, The Root of All Evil, Part 8. Now, when we left off, Regina was headed back to North Carolina. In North Carolina, LJ met with his hacker and put him on the job of finding evidence of Bruce and Jessica in Denver. Q finally attended an AA meeting and got the support and clarity that he needed. And when he got back to the house, he found Angela missing, the nurse unconscious, and India dead in the nursery bathtub.
Q watched as the woman half carried, half dragged a obviously drowsy Angela out of the bedroom, down the hall, and into the garage. From the garage camera view, he watched the woman tie Angela up, put her in the trunk of the car, and go back in the house. Inside the house, the woman gathered all of India's belongings, put on India's coat, her hat, her gloves, her scarf, grab her purse, go back out to the car, and drive off the property. Q calls LJ. It's 5 p.m. in North Carolina. He tells him that Angela's been taken, both she and the nurse have been drugged, and that India is dead. LJ completely loses it. The police arrive while Q's on the phone with LJ, and he has security take them around the property. LJ conferences in Wesley, and together they discuss what Q observed on the videos. LJ tells Wesley to get in contact with the hacker and provide him with all of the information on India's vehicle and her family, and have him see if he can find India's vehicle on ALPR, and he tells Q to provide the police with India's personal information so that they can find her daughter. While he's having this conversation, he's rushing to get home. When he finally makes it home, he has to rush and tell Regina what's going on while he packs a bag because he is heading to Denver. He stresses to Regina that she cannot tell anyone what's going on. 4.5 hours later, LJ arrives in Denver, and one of the members of the security team is waiting there to give him a ride. He's missed a call from Wesley, and when he calls him back, he finds out that the hacker has some information for him, and he needs him to call him immediately. LJ tells Wesley to let the hacker know that he'll contact him as soon as he gets set up at the Denver house. When he gets to the Denver house, it's 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. The crime scene investigations unit has already been all over the property. They've cleared out. Detectives have interviewed all of the staff on scene, including Q, and the nurse has regained consciousness at the hospital. Apparently, the lemonade was spiked with sleeping pills. She has very little information that she can give because once she drank the lemonade, she was out like a light. The police have found India's daughter at India's house, tied up, and Jessica and India's car are nowhere to be found. Q is waiting for LJ in the guest house with all the videos queued up and ready to be viewed. After viewing all of the footage, LJ looks at Q and says, Q, this isn't your fault, man. You did everything that you were trained to do. There were over 10 professional security guards on this property, and they had no clue that Jessica was even here, let alone that Angela was in immediate danger. Not one of them heard or saw anything suspicious. Jessica's not only crazy, but she's smart and skilled. You said, man, it is my fault. I shouldn't have even left her. I should have made sure I laid eyes on India. LJ interrupts his pity party and says, and I should have made sure that every employee here had perfect credit, that every employee here was childless and familyless, that every employee here had money in the bank, that every employee here was without sin, so that they couldn't be bribed or threatened or tricked or fooled or cajoled. Do you hear how ridiculous that sounds? We're human beings, man. We're not robots. We're human. We're fallible. We make mistakes. Q said, in this business, there's no room for mistakes. Mistakes killed Danielle. Mistakes almost killed Ramona. LJ said, Angela's not Danielle, and she's not Ramona. This ain't that. Come on, man. You're going to have to let that guilt and that shame go and move on. But right now, you're going to have to lock those emotions away
and focus on the mission.
Now, clearly, India was willing to tell Jessica everything she had to because she was trying to save her daughter's life. But even with all of that information, Jessica's plan was pretty risky unless she had a way to know where you were and when to expect you to come back. Q says, right. You know, one of the things that I noticed is that while I was gone, Jessica checked her phone a lot more frequently than she did before we all got back to the house with Angela. It's like she was checking to see. LJ and Q looked at each other, and then they ran out to Q's truck. They searched the truck and found a tracking device in the undercarriage. They immediately went over to Angela's truck, searched hers, and found another one. LJ told the security to search the entire property, sweep the property for bugs, go into the woods, look for surveillance equipment, and they were shocked at what they found.
Q looks at LJ and says, well, we might be retired from the force, but it's still in us. LJ says, yep, and I'm not a cop anymore, so I don't care if I gotta break some laws. How about you? Q looks at LJ and says, let's get it. LJ pops the lid on his suitcase and pulls out 2 satellite phones and a bag full of SD cards. The thing about satellite phones is that they're not easily traceable. Now they can be tracked with a warrant, and data can be pulled from them with a warrant, but they don't hold a lot of data on the actual devices. Most of the data is in the cloud and on the SD card. You get rid of the information on the SD card, and you send very little information to the cloud, and there's not a lot of information to track. In addition, the information is not transferable, so you can't download and transfer the information from one satellite phone to another. This is why satellite phones are also the preferred communication method of hackers. However, they're not cheap and they're hard to come by. Now that he and Q are equipped with the satellite phones and SD cards that they can switch out as needed, LJ calls Lorenzo. Lorenzo tells LJ that he's right. Bruce's wife never left North Carolina. He has all of the proof available for him downloaded to the firm's server, but it's not admissible in court. He also has a list of every address that Bruce visited while he was in Denver. Bruce used a car service. Lorenzo hacked into the car service's system and was able to pull all of the driver's data. Bruce and his wife didn't stay at a hotel. They actually stayed at Bruce's hunting lodge that he owns right outside of Denver. Lorenzo tells LJ and Q that either Bruce's wife stayed in the hunting lodge the entire week, or she never got out of the car, because everywhere Bruce went, he went inside alone. LJ tells Lorenzo to trace every dime that Bruce and his wife have spent since the night that Miss Cheryl was attacked. Lorenzo tells him he already has. He has members of his team mining the data as they speak, and he'll have all of that information uploaded to the firm's server as soon as it's complete. As soon as they hang up, Q looks at LJ and says, you have a wife and children. I have nothing to lose. You keep your hands clean. You plan, I execute, I take all the risk. LJ says, you love her, don't you? Q looks at LJ and says, enough to kill a mug and enough to save her and her baby and let them both go. Let me handle this, bruh. I got it.